there is one. Oh, we can't share screen. Awesome. Okay. Heck yeah. Where is it? Oh, oh, it does show us the corner. Perfect.
Yay.
Okay. That's right. All right.
I was a little awkward.
Are we ready to start? Cool. I call this meeting to order at 5:56 p.m. Director or Vice President, absent excused, Director of Internal Affairs. Here. Director of Legislative Affairs.
Present.
Director of Finance. Here. Director of Outreach. Here. Director of Student Technology, vacant.
Point of information. It's 9:46. You're about
Yeah.
46.
10 minutes off.
What did I just say?
Yeah, 56, 5:56.
Okay, thank you.
Notice for the agenda.
I'm dyslexic today. Okay, cool. Would anyone like to amend the agenda before we approve it?
Motion to amend the agenda to include discussion on student representation on the Presidential Search Advisory Committee, short as PSAC, and placing this before task forces on the agenda.
Is there a second? Second. Moved by Ben, seconded by Mariah. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? Abstaining? Motion passes. Is there any other amendments to the agenda?
I motion to amend the agenda to strike the conversation on the CCE bylaws as the vice president is not here.
Is there a second?
I second that motion.
Moved by Nora, seconded by Alicia. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Abstaining, motion passes. Cool. Open public forum. Now is the time for public comment. Thank you and welcome to all those members of the public who are present at this meeting today. This segment of the meeting provides the executive board an opportunity to hear new concerns and new perspectives on current issues relating to the UW-Tacoma student body. The executive board will neither discuss nor debate topics raised in public comment. This is not because we don't value commenters' perspectives, but to ensure that any related action is taken transparently before a duly notified public at a future meeting. However, directors may ask clarifying questions of those giving public comment or request to meet to gain further insight during the meeting. In addition, ASUWT is committed to fostering a constructive and respectful environment in these meetings. As such, we kindly ask that all remarks made during public comment reflect professionalism, respect, and come from a place of mutual understanding that we're all here to advocate on behalf of students. With that, I will now begin public forum, in which we have one member of the public who is not speaking.
Hi.
Cool. Cool. With that, we close public forum, moving on to unfinished business, in which we have none, to new business, beginning with PSAC. Or we did, I am out of practice, guys, we did it. Oh my gosh. Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Or I motion to approve the minutes
From the last meeting,
from last.
which I said that. Oh. This is from last year's team. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Nora, seconded by Ben. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? Abstaining? I will be better at rusty.
Great.
Cool. Starting with PSAC, Ben, do you want to say anything or do you want me to give context?
I'll give you the floor to give any context.
Okay. So if you haven't heard already, President Kase is stepping down from her role as the president of the entire UW system. And with that, there is a search committee that is being formed in order to inform who is going to be the next president of the entire UW system. That is called PSAC. President Search Advisory Committee. All the student government leaders have been told that there will be 1 to 2 students on this committee. Now, in the June Board of Regents meeting, when I, Kuni, who was Waffle's student body president in last year, and the incoming student body president for Waffle, what we all heard in that meeting was that all campuses would have representation, student representation on that committee. Since then, what it has become is, no, there's just gonna be 2 students on that. And the meeting minutes for the Board of Regents reflect that. So that's a whole different topic altogether. Moving forward in terms of what has been done, all 4 student government leaders, the president, myself, the president of ASUWT, the ASUWT Waffle, the GPSS, which is the Graduate Professional Student Senate, we all came together and drafted a letter that is in front of you. And we have sent that to the Board of Regents, specifically to Chairman Zeke, who chairs the Regents for this year, requesting that there not only be student body representation from all the campuses, but there be also representation of 1 graduate student. So 4 students total. This was sent this morning, and what you also have in front of you is the response from Zeke. So I would mind if you guys take a moment to look at that, skim that. But the general response is no, for many reasons. You don't get white grass people. I haven't heard from Waffle. I've talked to the president of GPSS. He's talking to his exec board this evening. And I still need to talk with ASUWT and see what they think about this. Because in the meetings that we've had leading up to this, we all feel pretty united that there should be effectively 4 students on this search committee. So I know I've talked about this with a few of you, and I just want to talk about it more in a public meeting and also give people space to react and talk about what ASUWT should be doing from an advocacy standpoint. Have a little bit of a broader discussion.
So to start, I think it's important to address that. Obviously, as we are, I think everyone here is aware, at the state and higher levels, generally, UW is viewed as a system, is viewed in the context of like we are all part of UW. However, what that discussion has also brought, what the discussion that has also been brought up within that context is the fact that not all student experiences at every campus are the same. And so with us being at UW Tacoma, as I've already voiced to Holly, what this does is it's apparent that they are not looking for a complete understanding of the student experience at all campuses from my perspective. I think there should be some genuine concerns among students of this. We are still in a public institution where taxpayer dollars are paid to the school, as well as we still pay tuition here. So if we are still invested, we do still have a invested financial interest in our education and who is placed in charge of that. And I think that's an important factor to make public, an important point to make public. And I think this was slightly alarming to me, this form of response. There doesn't seem to be any interest in a further discussion with presidents, from what I gathered in this response. And I think that is alarming in the context of showing that this committee is not focused on student voices so much as it is focused on fulfilling another form of administrative executive role. 2 cents.
And then one more speak.
Honestly, I think that the fact that there's only 2 students currently being chosen for this committee is not really representative. It doesn't represent all of UW, Tacoma, Seattle, and Waffle all together. And that doesn't really address that if those 2 students are coming from one campus. And I don't think that's very fair of the student experience overall. So I don't really particularly appreciate them not taking that into consideration, especially because Tacoma is often left out on things. So.
I'm trying to find the language verbatim, but when I followed up, because like I said, what we heard in the board of regents meeting was one thing, and what they ended up putting on record is another thing. That's really separate altogether, and we can't really find that, unfortunately. But what they looked for, or what they instructed us to do, is to find a student that encompasses just the broader student experience. I'm trying to find the exact quote.
What does that exactly
Mhm.
I was trying to, the answer is that.
I think that's a good point to bring up in that is like, what does, because even in the context of individual campuses, one student can't speak for an entire campus to begin with, but if we are expecting 2 students to speak on behalf of 3 campuses as a whole, it, like I've already said, it creates a lot of concern.
I found the exact quote. So what the secretary, Tyler Lane, had told us when he followed up for clarification. He says, and I quote, "It would be great to look for potential student members with the broadest possible experience of the UW, with enthusiasm to offer perspective characteristic of 60,000 students, and with the awareness that the UW serves the public in many ways, not limited to education or clinical care." So I suppose we have what all the student governments have before in a statement. I don't know what the other student governments want, but I know that there will probably be some sort of meeting where more presidents come together and we discuss what we want to do. What are you guys thinking?
I think to just speak on the fact that, like, if we're speaking specifically as our own experiences with like UW Tacoma, we are already in a very different setting than what, say, students up in Seattle experience. The fact that we don't have the robust housing, we don't have the same campus, we are considered in a more urban environment as we have more connection with the Tacoma community, as well as we are more embedded within the city, as opposed to Seattle, where Seattle does sort of function as a traditional college campus. I can't speak for Bothell because I haven't been on Bothell's campus, but I have been to Seattle's campus a few times. And the fact that, as you know, we have discussed as ASUWT plenty of times, the issues of housing and food equity being major issues that Tacoma students deal with that I don't think are as serious of issues in Seattle or Bothell. And making sure, it really, I just think this response was very disappointing. I also feel like the general air that I got from it was sort of like, let the adults handle it how adults need to. And to me, it's like, no, we are adults. We're not kids, especially at Tacoma, where we do have, I think, probably, I don't have the exact statistics, but I would assume probably the oldest population of the 3 campuses. this is our education that we have a vested interest in.
So then, I suppose my question is, when I go to this meeting with the other student body presidents, am I advocating that we escalate this, or do I work them? Do I try to prioritize that among this group of four that a Tacoma representative is included?
I think we should escalate.
I agree.
I will do it.
Or do you say, Alicia?
Yeah, I agree.
So then, here's my question, and that's not, let's make this an actual, let's talk about this through a little bit and maybe put an actual vote to it more officially. Are we, because when we say escalate, what does that mean? Does that mean, because the concern that I can see raised is there's very much that stance of let the adults handle it. Well, if the kids get too rowdy, then you're just no longer invited. And there can also be the stance taken of, okay, well, if they just take off the students on the committee, then that's an optics nightmare and the students can get louder, but
And
at the end of the day,
yeah, and that's where what I was gonna say was that ultimately, they're still gonna care about public optics. I don't think we should purely advocate just on, we need someone from Tacoma. I think it should still be on the stance that there's a representation across the board. And I just think, maybe in-person discussion needs to be had more with Zeke or whoever else on the committee is making this decision, and I don't see that as being very productive. Again, I may sound kind of pessimistic, but just reading this email.
So we're not giving an optimistic response.
Yeah,
He clearly said, I respectfully decline to your request to enlarge the committee and equally respectfully ask you to submit an unranked list of 2 to 4 student representatives. So it doesn't sound like there's any room for discussion, but I really do believe that having equal representation of each campus as well as a graduate student, because I feel like they're extremely underrepresented, is necessary. And if we can escalate it, I think we should. Whether that means having students just being informed about this happening, because I'm sure that nobody knows about it happening as of now, or going further with that.
and at least I see that in the thought, but for that, I know that part of this search committee, they did this with the provost who they had hired around this time last year. What they did was that search firm, I don't know if it's the same one, but they went around to all the different campuses. And I know that I was a part of one that was on Zoom that maybe had less than 20 some odd students from the Tacoma. And then there was an in-person meeting with the provost that happened, and there was maybe like 5 students there. So I don't know how wide of a net they're going to cast and how much of it. I can see a lot of effort being done on the Seattle campus, but I don't know if that's the type of involvement of giving students the opportunity to project their voices into this decision is going to be part of it.
well, and I think on top of that, like, whoever they're going to bring to the campus is already someone they've essentially made some level of a decision on.
Yeah.
And so I think, like, when you're narrowing down, like, no, student interest should be at the table. Like, we, again, we do deserve that, even if like there are other financial investors in the school, we are still paying tuition. This is still a public university. I understand that there are research aspects of that, there are other points of that, but ultimately this is still a institution of education that should be student focused. And to me, and just gathering from the general response from everyone here, I think there's a general agreement that this shows that there is not a student focus in this decision making.
Alicia, did you have comment?
If that were on that, sorry, I was looking at the.
You're
But, you know, what I think now, sorry, I said reading something.
No, you're good. Like, the one point I do want to highlight from his email is the very end, that there will be time to express the full tri-campus student perspective so that the advisory committee can add the criteria suggested by student leaders to the search profile. What that reads to me as is that committee is going to meet with all 4 student vice presidents and talk to us about our perspectives. But I don't know that for certain.
I would also be curious because there's the mention of the recommendation of a committee no larger than 12 members. In fact, they're now at 16. I would be curious as well as to who are these members that are on the selection committee already that you've already gone past this 12, and why are we not, like, why are their voices more important than ensuring we have a broader student voice?
I can actually find that for you.
Yeah.
So while I'm pulling this up, here's a piece of information. The faculty senate also got stuck. They are only allowed Seattle representation. So Waffle, Seattle's faculty senate, or Waffle and Tacoma's faculty senate, they ended up writing a joint letter saying, hey, this is not fair. And I reached out to Anton to see what the result of that was. I haven't heard back. So,
Yeah, it's very unfair. I was also going to mention that this is those 12, some who was the extra 4 members we did, and went over the 12 members who were they selected.
yeah.
Exactly.
Give me 2 seconds. Here we go. Someone count for me. Yeah, if you guys want to grab the mic, that's really fine. I think I do.
I think yours might be muted too.
Oh, yeah, it was right there.
We're good, sorry about that.
Okay, someone count for me. Regent Zeke, who's the chair, Pat Chun, athletic director, Tim Dillon, who is in charge of youth medicine, Roy Diaz, the former president of the Alumni Association, Waffle's chancellor, another regent, the vice president of university advancement at Seattle, Ricky Hall, who is another Seattle person, Sarah Norris Hall, finance and budgeting, our chancellor, faculty senate incoming chair for Seattle, another region, Denzel Sweet, who is like the Mentha of Seattle, another region, and then a student member will be chosen from a list jointly composed from the presidents of a student all Seattle.
So this 16 is including the student representation. So in reality, they would actually only be adding 2.
Yeah.
And as opposed to the 4, as opposed to like the 4 that this is
Yeah.
applying. Also going off that list, it's all Seattle representation to begin with. Like this is.
Except for Waffle.
Yeah.
Liz.
Well, besides the chancellors, I mean, I think this even shows that it's an even broader, it's an even bigger issue than just student representation. There is unfair campus representation across the board with this committee. I mean, with only the 2 chancellors from the other 2 campuses, whereas everyone else are, also, why do they have so many regents? And the other thing is, I understand the Alumni Association does do fundraising for the school and stuff, but it almost seems like we're prioritizing alumni who've already graduated from the school over students that are currently here.
I could see an argument of wanting the experience of past students.
Yeah, and I'm not saying it shouldn't be there,
Yeah.
but there are multiple regents also on the list.
Yeah, especially when they're the ones who make the final decision. That's
Yeah.
really curious. What is it?
So what I'm also hearing is that our chancellor is a representation
Oh, only one, yeah.
And so then Seattle has like 5 to 6 members who represent Seattle. Correct. I just saw this a little bit. I understand that they're a big campus, so I can see where the understanding comes from, but then you need 6 members that need to speak on behalf of the.
And then only one from Tacoma, being the chancellor, who is a very busy woman and doesn't spend time with students on a one-on-one basis
Mhm.
often, so,
No, I mean,
I mean.
and that's not to say that's not her fault
No, it's
specifically,
not.
but yeah.
That's not what I'm meaning by
Yeah.
that, but it's just that we could use somebody at least to represent students, if not somebody that spends a bunch of time with students one-on-one, being a professor or.
And with what Alicia was just saying with the proportional represent, I think the other thing too is like, yes, Seattle is a bigger campus, but then there should be proportional representation where there is an equal number or a similar to how the Senate used to work, where based on population of the school, there should be that much representation on this committee, in my opinion. I mean, I'm just a student, and as I've addressed, they don't seem to really care what I think, but that's my input.
In the nature of time, is there any kind of emotion on the floor in terms of how we want to advise moving forward? Which I think a lot of it, personally, I think it's very much contingent on what Seattle wants to do. Because what I don't want is having it just be Tacoma. Like if everyone else is backing down, Tacoma has done a lot to get to this point where we're at least neutral to the regions. It would be a really bad thing if we didn't have the backing of all the other student governments.
I think there needs, in my input on it would be, I think there needs to be a discussion with the other presidents, with yourself and the other presidents, discussion with the faculty senate to see where theirs went, and also a discussion with the chancellor. But I would also bring up specifically to the chancellor, and maybe in all 3 of these discussions, the idea of some form of proportional representation.
I wouldn't personally feel comfortable voting on anything currently, because I'm just starting this student, so I, should be getting all the information without making decisions that might impact some people, so that's my personal opinion.
Can we have a vote to maybe bring up the conversation with the campuses and have them understand that you can get back to us about what is the plan is going forward? Like having to say, look, I can speak to the.
Yeah.
Go
What I'm just being careful of is because earlier we did like an official vote, that was like all of you saying that you agreed on something, I'm just trying to be careful. That wasn't that could be perceived as an official action, so I just procedure is following.
Oh, that's fair. That's all I'm like, we're escalating now.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing then is get more information about what the other presidents are doing, check in with faculty senate and check in with the chancellor. Continual discussion. That's fair. Your motion on the floor to table this until we learn more.
I motion to table discussion.
Second.
Moved by Nora, seconded by Ben. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All those in favor of tabling this discussion until we have more information, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, stay in motion. Okay, cool. Okay. Next, we have task forces. So just to have some context on this, and I'll throw this up here. I will send this all to you guys after the meeting. This is very much not in a done state, so I just want to run through things with you guys and get input. That way next week I can come up with more final draft and present it to you guys. So. So first task force up here, starting with food equity and basic needs task force. Just for review and discussion of how this is gonna go and how the bylaw committee has been discussing. The Senate, the idea is that before a task force can be created, a strategic plan needs to be put in place, because you can't just make a task force and then be like, we'll do things, you have some kind of idea where to go. And then once the Senate approves this, that is what ASUWT will be operating on. And then the Senate will have the opportunity to amend it as you see fit, if that's how the bylaws get amended.
If you said this.
What I said earlier was, this is very much just a preliminary look, and then you guys will get a final draft.
Okay, no, I just meant so I can look at it without really.
Sorry.
That's fine.
Yes. So, all of these have the same format, but I'm just gonna skip to the most important thing for all of these. So first, for each of these task forces, each of them will have a mission and a goal. This is what I propose the mission goal to be for the Food Equity and Basic Needs Task Force. Mission to address food insecurity and other basic needs concerns among Tacoma students to ensure their success. Goal, create a supportive campus environment that ensures all students have access to basic needs resources by June 2027. This is broad. As I go down, there will be measurable things that will determine if that goal has been met. A proposed task force timeline that I have put together, and we can talk about this more and feedback. It's for 2024, 2025. Data is collected, we develop partnerships and raise awareness. A lot of this is informed by the data that was collected last year, where students are insecure, some aren't housed, et cetera. But students feel stigmatized about going to resources. There's a significant amount of students that have demonstrated need, but not enough students actually going. And I think it was like 56% said that they don't feel comfortable because they experience some sort of stigma. So what I proposed here, and again, I want feedback before this goes to Senate. The first year being collecting any initial student input, develop campus partnerships, et cetera, and then prepare for a destigmatization campaign for the next year. 2025 to 2026, that entire year is a year-long awareness campaign. So a lot of the work that the task force would be doing is working with university administration as well as doing its own programming to raise awareness. And the idea is after data is collected here, a lot of that work is done by this year's task force. And then in 2026, 2027, continued awareness efforts, et cetera, but evaluating to determine if the task force needs to continue, create a strategic plan, just seeing if the things that have been done in those last 2 years have been successful. There is a broader breakdown by each year, going by quarter. Summer quarter, develop a survey, marketing plan, train on board, et cetera. Fall quarter, launch the survey, and then regular meetings with campus partners, get students to take the survey. Winter quarter, because this task force in particular, I foresee working very closely with the Legislative Action Council, because there will be a lot of bills related to basic needs that we'll want to support and through. In addition to supporting legislatively, they will be working to prepare materials, strategies, et cetera, for the awareness campaign, the destigmatization campaign that would be the upcoming year. With spring quarter, will be continuing a lot of that work, as well as anything that may arise from the data that's collected in the fall. 2025, 2026, you have new task force people, so they reintroduce, the task force gets reintroduced to the campus community, community partners, they get trained, and then they prepare for the campaign, which is really just review what last year's team has done, modify things as they see fit, et cetera. They do the campaign for that year, continue to support the Legislative Action Council. and then spring quarter, work with just finalize things and determine if there are things that can be continued on just an every year basis, and that's not just a one-time awareness campaign. There's some things that can continue year over year. And then year 3, this is where it's very vague because it's so far ahead. And at each of these steps, you'll see is in spring quarter, there is a modified strategic plan needed, which I would say will always be needed. But this is, like I said, in the summary page, just more how we make this long-term, how we make this consistent, and doing some kind of supplemental survey, not as large as what we've done in the past, but something to just give a snapshot of is the work that we've just done the last 2 years working. This page is, when talking about the goals. So this is that goal that I had mentioned earlier. What determines if that goal has been met? I put really aggressive goals and hoping that people can bring me back to earth and give some other ideas. For example, 25% decrease in food insecurity. This is not going to happen, I don't think, to that level, but it was something I wanted to put there. 35% increase in student utilization and student support resources. And all of these can be better worded too. This is very much a rough draft. 15% decrease in students reporting that basic needs and security negatively impacted academic performance. 85% of students report that they're aware of student resources, et cetera, et cetera. What are people's general thoughts on this task force plan so far?
So question on the 25%.
Yes.
Is that 25% of, so if we were to take the 45% based on our polling, and to make that 100%, is that a 25% drop from that 44%, or is that like a total of 25% drop subtracted from that 44%?
Subtracted is how
Okay. Yeah, that's
aggressive.
it's totally aggressive. I think if we were to say 25% drop of the total of that 44%, I think that might be achievable. But yeah.
Okay.
Depending on if we have that.
I think it's ambitious, but it's very ambitious actually, because there are plans for having a dining hall is 2028. So for us to be measuring that in 2027, I think there would need to be some kind of like mandated change.
So
To kind of like help.
you're correct on that. Because this was I initially was writing this for 2020.
Oh, yeah.
But then it got to a point of like, that's almost too far ahead, and that's so many student government administrations. All of these KPIs, as well as just the entire strategic plan, can be modified by the Senate. So if, say, 2 years from now, like, they want to keep these KPIs the same, but the Senate 2 years from now, in 2027, they're like, this plan is still good, we should continue this work, but let's extend it for one more year when the dining hall is done. That's something they can do. I really just imagine this as being a framework that once we have it established, as long as we don't have an administration that comes in and decides that they just want to completely tear everything apart, all they really have to do is just continue what is written. Listen.
I was actually hoping that these numbers would probably change over time.
Yeah.
I would think that the only thing we would really have to work on is the strategic plan. Obviously, having a strategic plan that goes forward, that would have to be put in place for the day that could be like the future administration. Like, hey, we're going to plan for this year, but here's what some of that will take. So, yeah, I think it's good. I think the numbers, that's the number that would go with what you think could possibly happen. So,
And considering like our initiatives in general are pretty ambitious anyway, it fits.
we're pretty ambitious.
We are. I think this is, again, I see this more because for all of these, like once this is approved by the Senate, this summer quarter breakdown the task force separately is gonna have like a weekly breakdown, but this is gonna be done in week 2, this is gonna be done in week 3, roughly. This is more just a broader, like, these need to be done in these quarters.
And question, are they going to be like doing evaluations every quarter? Or is it gonna be yearly or just in that second year and third year?
Great question. So, you mean in terms of like surveys, additional
Yeah,
surveys?
so to see if like, just to analyze if there's been progress. In the first year, obviously, we're having benchmarks to compare to, but are they just going to like look at it as a whole, obviously?
Yeah, I have it varied based on the task force. For this one in particular, we'll have the preliminary questions that get asked with our second basic needs survey that will go out in fall if this is approved. And then have it would really be this final year after the destigmatization campaign had happened, where there's another supplemental.
And also, are we changing all the members each year for the task forces? Okay, so there's never gonna be like a recurring person.
I mean, I would love for that, but it could happen, you know, there could be an incoming team and they have someone who sat on the food equity task force the previous year, they could just choose to hire again, if that's what that team wants to do.
For example, where you advertise and time to this meeting and it is 2 minutes away, so there needs to be an extension of the meeting called or at 6:30. Someone can motion to extend the meeting by a certain
Motion to extend the meeting by 15 minutes, since we're 15 minutes late.
I second the motion.
Moved by Ben, seconded by Lucia, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion still passes. Were you saying something, Laura?
I was just gonna ask, if you were presenting on the other 2 task forces, just because I was considering time, but now we have 15 extra minutes.
Yes. Now that those will go much, much quicker, because I explained how these work. If you think of anything else too, I will take your guys' and put those in here, and then I will send it to you guys after the meeting. Or Alicia?
Yeah, this is a question. Are we able to get this by chance?
Yes, yes. All right, second one, campus development task force. This is the paw print one. Paw print is a completely gone. Don't worry. This task force is more on when talking about, like, the campus is growing, what are we gonna do, right? So the mission, to inform and materialize the development of campus buildings and facilities within the planned expansion of the campus paw print to best reflect the needs of the UW student community. Goal, ensure that all plans for UW for the campus expansion align with student preferences by June 2026. The reason why, and I'd be open to hearing from other people too, the reason why I put 2026 as opposed to 2027, and why this is a 2-year rather than 3-year or any amount is because as far as I'm aware, they're working with this firm, and that will be a multi-year thing, but I don't think it will be as long as Standard Food Equity thing. And I imagine it will probably get to a point that after we've collected enough data, I don't think ASUWT will need a task force for it. That could really just be the job of the president, vice president, to advocate to administration.
I think the key also, with both of these, is going to be establishing a legislative framework on my end, to where there are policies in place by the end of our term, to where those can be expanded on, as opposed to future administrations needing to come up with their own for these issues.
In summary, this year would be collecting data because we don't have any data, and creating formal recommendations in terms of what students want. And then 2025 to 2026 would be really just doing more advocacy, but really getting students in rooms with administration to have them mobilize for themselves in addition to members. First year, again, survey, focus groups, town hall meetings, and generally the same deal. So feedback related to how we can bump these out and have more specific things would be helpful. Because this is a shorter task force in terms of duration, I only have 4 KPIs here, which is 75% of students feel that their input was considered in campus planning. 80% of students report feeling satisfied with how campus development is going. This is a really ambitious effort. 2,500 unique student voices collected, and then 60% of planned projects in the campus master plan, whenever it's completed, are backed by student voice.
That's pretty much our campus population.
Yeah.
Okay, we have probably 500 out there.
Asking half of the population to go into it. I think. Yeah, like, maybe lowering that, just have.
Maybe let's start at 500, maybe.
Well, the survey's about 500.
Oh,
So we can hit 500, I would say we can hit 1,000 easily.
I would say like 1,000.
yeah.
Maybe. I think even if it's 500 would be more realistic, because especially with something else that I was just thinking about was having, if you have an event that's promoted by ASUWT, then the way that entry is to take a survey. So that's how you register.
Yeah.
And it's just really cool, we go with local exceed inclusion.
Yeah.
They'll accuse us of stealing their information.
Is there any other feedback at this time related to this? Nor should I feel bad that we need to get mics here. And again, I'll send these out. I just wanted to get like a preliminary with everyone here to have ideas. So. Okay, inclusive access task force. This one needs the most amount of help. I feel pretty good with the goal and mission. Mission being to identify and address barriers to inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility on the UW-Tacoma campus, and the goal, UW-Tacoma being fully accessible and fosters an authentic sense of belonging to students by June 2027. Question is how? Because in the first year, we have the easy part, which is just collect student voices. Get them to take a survey. I was thinking having like a town hall in partnership with the Office of Equity and Inclusion, doing stuff like that, where we get in their face about some things, maybe with like the chancellor. But aside from that, unless you guys have some ideas, I just put in which order amend the task force to better outline the next 2 years, because I really don't know.
This could be an opportunity to speak with RSOs specifically. All cultural RSOs, I'm sure, would be interested in participating in some kind of thing that pertains to this. Whether that's like putting on an event and then the task force is there doing what the task force do.
I suppose my thing is that before we can even hire for the task force, there needs to be a plan.
Yeah.
So, with what she said, what can we do in regards to reach out to ourselves to help? Maybe the ourselves will help with this strategic plan?
Will our sales respond during the summer?
That's a great question.
I think the officers, right? And especially with all of the officers in the email. Yeah. And tailor it to each individual RSO also, so it gives them incentive to care about this.
Do you, actually, if you haven't reached out to the RSOs yet, maybe a good introduction point for you, Miranda.
So reaching out to RSOs and gathering input would not be part of the strategic plan?
I think that would be part of the strategic plan anyway. What I'm hearing Mariah say is if we want to flesh this out a little bit more, we can talk to them already and see what some ideas.
I'm concerned to bring it up in the committee, but our
Will the RSO committee be meeting this summer?
It can also be a good point, kind of involved into like, it's, they probably don't want to be a new person. So actually, but kind of a question in regards to what the goal of this one is.
Yeah. Tacoma is fully accessible and fosters an authentic sense of belonging to students by June 2027. Is there a member of the public have a comment?
How are we measuring?
Great question. I ran out of ideas of what to put, but the two that I put down just tentatively was 90% of students report feel a sense of belonging on campus. And then 5 major initiatives have been implemented on campus. And I would define major initiatives related to IDEA being, when talking to the new vice chancellor, she's wanted to open like a women's center or a Q space, just different big things that makes the campus more inclusive.
Since you're including the diversity and inclusiveness, do you want to possibly reach out to them, like what kind of concerns the students came up to them about regards it being there on campus? Not saying they can't be women, but
Are you saying,
the gay concerns that you have, that they can also help with this task force. But why do we want to do that? But
yeah,
because I know you're saying what this is, like how can you go about this? It's going to be hard to.
Yeah,
it's very
like we have enough data to be able to say that this task force needs to be made. I think 50, when students were surveyed in 2023, 50% of students said that they feel like they belong on campus. And then we have the anecdotal evidence of people saying that campus is not accessible physically or just through resources. We have students who have anecdotally said that they feel that our DEI work is performative, et cetera, et cetera. Is there any, because you guys did a sense of the sounding board before it goes to Senate. Do you guys think if we can't, I think what I'm hearing is that there should be some amount of effort to reach out to students, even preliminarily, to see what they might want for this. In the event that we don't get great responses in terms of they say they don't know, or we just don't get responses over the summer, do we think that this first year where it's outlined and it says in winter quarter, amend the next year where we have more data is enough?
I think so.
Yeah, I would just imagine that a good chunk of the first time we spent gathering data on what needs to be done. Because we can't just come in here and say, oh, we're going to be doing this for you. Like, it's driven by the need, and we don't have the data on the need, then we can't say we're going to do something. Yeah. So I think we should say, how we plan to get that data, and then after that, come up with another plan for what we're going to do with it.
I was talking about that too, because you said this is like a stat from 2023 that we're trying to put off of as well. So like we really can't go much into the trying to solve it. Yeah, so we can always click the data.
And then I suppose KPIs would be released by now. So, yeah. Cool, make sure time, I forget when we sent it, but
We got 5 minutes.
cool. So your director updates, if there was ever a discussion.
No, I already chatted before, that I got some filled out and I already, but it is really required to do weekly, so, there's also some people to do that as well. And then, I think I was also going to be reaching out to the email to me soon about special allocations in regard to what you want to see in request for the special allocations. If you have any questions regarding the budget, I have the numbers, I know you want the numbers, so, yeah, that's all.
Any other director updates?
meeting, DSHS might be rescheduled to next week for discussing our legislative agenda with them. Also, it's primary season, so we will fully have information to the student population on how to get registered to vote and how to find information on your local candidates. So,
I've just been, real quick, just been working with Senator Islam to get surveys put together, so we're mostly working on that. They will be surveying their schools or the people that they represent to determine what they need, what we should be doing for them. So I guess that's the number one thing we'll be working on.
Anything you want to
I don't know, any updates other than running for any teams you guys?
advisor updates.
If anyone has time tomorrow at 10 to join us for an interview for the student specific needs specialist, great. So we can get some perspective from the candidate. And then along with Ben's idea of working on primary information, I have been asked as a designer for student involvement to do some election information programming for the year. And then approaching our elections season, we'll have multiple elections happening. So it may involve some support from student government, but it's also something that we will do as an office, so just to ensure that information gets out there.
And then in terms of chair announcements, after this meeting, there's going to be a list that goes out related to fall scheduling, so we can get our group book ASAP. Aside from that, adjourn this meeting at 6:43 p.m.
nice.